Hello, welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thank you very much for tuning in and following me, watching me as I explore the amazing, incredible, wide world of pens. And here's two rotating in front of you, being held up by their appropriately colored crabs. These are Hongdian 1862s. Britain at Asveen/Hongdian reached out to me and asked if I would like to review these pens, and I said sure. Picked out two colors, the blue and the green, and he sent them to me. And they're exactly what I expected them to be. Very well made in the Black Forest tradition, so they're metal pens. Very interesting design, color combinations. They call them like a milk tea color. Some people refer to these as vintage. They're sold in a decent amount of places, and it's a reasonable price for a nice high quality pen. I'm not a fan of white pens, but I do have a few, and I've learned to enjoy them more. So we're going to explore these pens in more depth and detail. Mr. Crab is going to give you a wink, and we will dive in. Stay tuned. So when you first pick up the pen, it has a nice, substantial, dense feel to it. You certainly know there's a lot of metal in the pen. Nice design on the top of the finial, kind of like a tree, fern type of design. This is that very sturdy clip that I really like Hongdian makes. This is a solid piece of brass that's been plated with something in the silver tone version. Could be chrome, could be something else. And it's spring-loaded, which is very nice. Very functional clip. I like that rounded end. And aesthetically, I think it really complements the design of the pen. The barrel in all the pens, they come in 4 colors. Here they are. Have a nice texture to them. Kind of a matte color, a pastel color. They all have white finials, white caps, pull-off cap, and we'll see a nice small section and a number 5 nib. This one's extra fine. The other pen in blue is a fine nib. Standard plastic feet on the other side. So this is a pen that's on the small side, petite one might say. And looking at it, you would think that it would post well, and it does. That cap does change the balance because it has decent weight to it. Let's give you the weights of the various components. But I'm not really one that posts pens very often, but if you need to post it, you can do that, and it's very secure. That section is about as small as I can tolerate, kind of pencil-sized, but then it goes with that number 5 nib. Could this pen have used a number 6 nib? Nah, I think it would have worked with the design, but that's not what we have here. Again, classic design pen, nice snap cap, nice click, and it's a cartridge converter. The barrel unscrews. You get a little resistance because there's that nice O-ring there at the top of the section. Just a standard piston converter, moves up and down. As you'll see later in the video, this is not as received, but I take it apart, get rid of the spring, lubricate the piston and lubricate the threads on the piston rod, and it just moves effortlessly. Very nice. I kind of like this pen in many levels. Nice small knockaround pen, everyday carry, and I think a lot of people will like the way that it looks. Here we have the Hongdian 1862, disassembled as much as I'm going to do it. Yes, I pulled this collar ring off the converter so I could take it apart, remove the spring, because, you know, I don't like the springs in there. And I'll lubricate some silicone grease on this piston rod and the piston before I reassemble it. This is a well-made pen, as in the Black Forest series of metal pens. Nice O-ring there, so when you tighten down the barrel, you feel it really nicely. Your classic number 5 nib assembly. There's an O-ring down there at the bottom, which I think is important to seal up. And this is a fine nib, and the other one I got is extra fine. So we'll see if we can show you the difference in the tipping material. Now, same plastic feet on the other side. These just pull apart in case you want to replace the nib. Makes it easy to do. So that's it. Let's dive into the pens a little bit more in an aesthetic viewpoint and then some writing. We're in as dark mode as we're going to get in the middle of the day. So let's bring in the trusty LED and let's look inside that cap. We'll see a solid plastic liner that facilitates the snap closure, which works well, and it looks like it's fairly sealed up. So I expect these nibs will stay as wet as any. And the top finial is interesting. It's just a classic design. So what inks to use is always a question, but I've gotten these Chinese inks from AliExpress earlier this year, and we're going to go with this blue and this green. I called ink number 1, ink number 2. They labeled them with a letter. I just think they're very interesting colors, and I hope they work good in the pen. They come in these 18 milliliter bottles. I put a label on top just so I can tell the difference because I can't really tell from the front of the bottle. And here's what they look like on a paper towel. That blue is pretty intense. Nice kind of like sky blue. And that green is good too. Looking forward to writing with the inks in the pens. As you can see, I got a fairly full fill. I'd say that's close to 100%. So the first pull up, you get about a little bit of a gap, 1/4 inch, about 3 millimeters. You go back down and you come back up again. You do it slowly. If you do it fast, you could cavitate and get air. And then that's a good fill, but I go up and down one more time. It's 3 times to fill because I like to make certain that the feed and nib and everything else is very flushed with ink. Even though I do flush it with soapy water and rinse it with plain water, this always makes certain that that first writing experience is enjoyable, which I like. So this is the absolute first writing I did with these pens once I filled them up. Very, very pleased with the writing. Nibs work well. Fairly wet. The extra fine is definitely fine. It's significantly finer line than the fine nib, so those people who like extra fine would really enjoy this nib. So we have some close-ups of the writing so you can get an idea of how these nibs work. And like I said, this is the first writing right after inking. Very, very happy with these pens. So how do these nibs write? I think they write very well. You may have heard both of them have a decent amount of feedback. The extra fine a little bit more, which is what you would expect. 2 different colored inks, but basically the same type of ink, same formulation. So I think these are very representative of these pens. I think the blue comes out really, really nice, and so does the green. The colors are more saturated than I expected. The nibs are fairly wet. You may have noticed occasionally it didn't seem to write. You think it might be skipping, but the nib is sensitive to rotation. So you need to keep it on the paper and at the right angle for that nib to write well. In my experience with fountain pens, it's just something you learn. Each pen has its own little idiosyncrasies. I'd rather learn them, enjoy the pen, than blame the pen, which sometimes people do. But these two certainly meet the criteria for being a good pen. So I'd referred to these two 1862 Hongdians as being in the Black Forest family. So here's two that are called Black Forest. Obviously this is black. And all these pens are in that family, as I said. They all have a similar type, nice solid design clip. They all have an interesting finial at the top of the cap and inlay. Fairly thin pens. This nice multicolored one is nice. Here's a nice clean brass one. A nice heavy-duty stainless steel one. So again, you got to admire Hongdian for taking a tried and true classic design and making different models based on that design. All of them are nice. I enjoy them. And I appreciate that variety that Hongdian brings to the table in these pens. You know, it's nice to see when a pen maker expands on a tried and true design, giving us pen lovers some variations and some interesting things to explore as we dive into the wide world of pens. So I mentioned Hongdian having interesting finials at the very top of the cap. So here's some examples of the Black Forest series. The blue and the black here. And some other ones. Sometimes they put the model number in there. Sometimes it's just a design element. And of course, here is the white one, which is the 1862. So I admire the designers that really go that extra detail to put something interesting on the top of the cap. That just makes us go, whoa, and enjoy the pens even more. So here's just a quick size comparison. You can see the Hongdian is in that same realm. The bottom is a 78G, and that's a Metropolitan. I consider them small pens. Let's uncap them and look at them again. So here they are posted. Again, similar size length. Hongdian is actually the longest of the group. And they all have about a number 5 size nib. The Pilot nibs is not exactly the standard 5. There's little wings on it and stuff. Let's look at the sections real close. And number 5 nibs are usually not that exciting, and these are no exception. I think the section on the Hongdian is more standard, easier for me to use. I never got used to a Metropolitan or a 78G. I try to use them as everyday carries because they're nice knockaround pens, but the writing, the pen, the whole experience just wasn't something that I enjoyed. So they're relegated to the drawer and being brought out for comparisons like this. So now it's time for a wrap-up, some editorial comments, and a final writing sample. My philosophy on fountain pens are I try to enjoy the pen for what it is. And to me, these are very well-made pens. They have some interesting visuals to them. They certainly will last a long time. Metal bodies, they have a nice solid weight to them. Are they pens that I would normally seek out? I'd have to be honest, no. Am I really happy that I was able to review them? Yes, absolutely. I love all the varieties of pens that are available for us. And hopefully, through a review like this, you can decide whether this is a pen you might like or not. Hey, you'd never know. I don't know anybody else probably reviewing these pens, but who knows? At least I get a chance to show them to you and let you decide whether this is a pen you would like or not. And as I've mentioned a few times, maybe you just enjoy watching videos, because I do. And I watch videos on some pens before I do my videos, just because I like to see what other people say. And sometimes they'll notice things in a pen that I didn't notice, which is great. Just like when you film it on camera, all of a sudden you see something. But now's the time for our conclusions and to bid you adieu. So I have to be honest, I did a little bit of my smoothing on this nib and the extra fine, and it made them write better. Maybe there was a little baby's bottom on it that kind of made it inconsistent in the writing, but now it's a little wetter. It writes with less pressure needed, So tuning is a good thing to do. There's tons of videos on tuning. I just use a nail board with 3 different levels of grit on it that I buy for $1 in the supermarket, and that's worked fine for me. So we've reached the end of this video. I want to thank everyone for watching. I hope this video finds everyone safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, having an opportunity to try something new. Hopefully, whatever you have enriches you, encourages you to put some ink down, because that's what they're for. And I certainly do enjoy doing that. If you reach the end of this video, and yes, I also smooth this pen and nib, and it does write a little wetter, a little bit more darker line. You know, extra fine is not my favorite nib, but this one does a good job. With that, we will say bye. Until the next video. Ink color looks nice too.